Wrestling fans, how the fuck are ya? Welcome to Project Pipe Bomb. I'm your host, Paul Jazer, aka the Arabian Wolf, joined with my esteemed panel, the Vigilante Mario. How's it going, brother?
Bada bing, it's going fantastic, dude.
Bada boom, realest guys in the room. How you doing? Welcome back to another exciting show, guys. We didn't really know what we were going to talk about tonight, so I just labeled the show This Week in Wrestling. We're going to go over a little bit of Raw, a little bit of NXT, might work our way into some Lucha Underground, some rumors swirling around the grapevine this week, and try to break down everything, give you guys our analysis. So let's just jump right into it. You know, Monday Night Raw, everyone has their opinions. I thought the show could have been a little bit better, being the drawing factor for next week's go-home show going into Mania. But overall, you know, I thought it was a solid showing. You know, the opening to the show, a little lackluster in my opinion. I thought they could have hit harder on the cylinders, but you know, overall, it was a decent show. We got to see Sting at the end, and you know, there was some fairly okay contested matches in between. As far as filler goes, what do you think about it?
Well, you know me, I'm the hater here, so I mean.
You are the hater here.
Yeah, I am, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a terrible show. I mean, I think you expect them to pull something awesome, like, you know, because it's WrestleMania season. So, I mean, they should be putting on consistently good shows every week, but they haven't. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to next week, though. You know, it's the last show before WrestleMania. You know, a bunch of appearances by Sting and Lesnar and all the cool motherfuckers that are going to be at Mania. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. But for this past Raw, I'm not a big fan of it. You know, the ending was cool with Sting, but that's about it for me.
You know, some people made the argument Randy Orton could have been utilized better as far as when he made his return and how they went about it. They slowed it down. They made it seem like he was going to join the Authority. At first, they were going to run back to that same angle, that same old, you know, vine trap. Nobody wanted him there. And then he broke away. He went after Rollins. Now we have Sting. He's getting his nose into the picture, siding with Orton, showing that they do, you know, they will work together. They're not best friends, but they will work together. You know, I liked at the end. I think it was after WWE already went off the air, but they let Sting cut a quick promo, and Randy Orton said, you know, man, that was pretty friggin' cool. You know, showed some respect to Sting, and he still rightfully deserves it. But, you know, overall, I thought it could have been a little bit better. If it was just a regular Raw, the drawing factor wouldn't be there, considering it is WrestleMania, whether or not the consistency is. They're still going to have all those fans tuning in next week. We get Reigns versus Lesnar, face-to-face confrontation. Who knows what else Raw is going to hold. But I wasn't too hyped about it, but I'm sure that their match, the main event at WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, I think it'll exceed fans' expectations as far as from an quality standpoint in ring work. I feel like it's going to be a stiff, hard-hitting, aggressive match, and regardless of the outcome, I think fans are going to get a little bit more than they expect. What do you think?
As far as the match goes, I mean, my expectations are pretty low. So, I mean, it's going to be pretty easy for them to surpass, you know, that.
Right.
But, you know, I'm looking forward to it to some degree, you know, because Roman Reigns has, you know, kind of a cool in-ring style. You know, he's not the best in the ring, but, you know, he's growing in there. And if you put him with a guy like Lesnar, you know, who can work stiff, then, you know, it might be a good match. You know, but who knows?
There was a lot of rumors surrounding it to prepare Roman Reigns for Brock Lesnar. Is the reason they had him work Bryan at Fastlane so he could work that fast, hard-hitting, aggressive style. We all know, if you've seen his indie work, Danielson was one of the stiffest, hardest clubbers around. He was a brawler, great technical wrestler, you know, technically sound, you know, by any means. He was one of the hardest hitters out there in the world. And he still is, even though he's watered down a little bit. You still get to see some of those vicious European uppercuts he throws around now and then. And I really do believe that it helped a lot preparing Roman Reigns going into Brock Lesnar, because if you just threw him to the Wolves and threw him to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31 with, you know, no prior preparation, I think it would have been a huge letdown as far as the quality. We all remember what happened with Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg. Nobody wants to go into that. Both guys were leaving the company. No one really cared. It was kind of like, get in there, get out, get this shit over with, and let's get out of the company. They didn't care about the fans. They were just there for their paycheck, and very disrespectful to the people that came before him.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's not your thing. My buddy Curtis is in the call. If you could hear us, you there, buddy? A little technical difficulties on Kirby's side, but we'll just move on. Hopefully he'll pop his head in and give a few analysis for us. But yeah, overall, I can't wait to WrestleMania 31. The build going into that so far is pretty good. Some things have been built properly, some things a little bit lackluster at times, but overall, it's WrestleMania, and people are still going to watch it, you know. I like to refer to it as pizza, you know. Even when it's good, it's really good, and when it's bad, it's still pretty good. So overall, you know, you're going to watch it no matter what, and there's always some surprises. We're expecting Sheamus to return. Majority of fans think he's going to be a heel. They don't know, you know, where he's going to play a role as far as his in WrestleMania, but it's most likely going to be the Andre Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Not too into that. Any last thoughts on Raw? We can talk maybe a little about NXT Columbus and the showing they put on for us.
Oh yeah.
You know, I thought it was a great show overall. We opened the show, I believe it was Tyler Breeze versus Kalisto, Samurai Del Sol, for those who don't know him. And, you know, they went out there, they had a good 12, 13-minute slot. They were afforded a good amount of time to, you know, showcase their talent, and they did just that. The Columbus crowd was great. You know, you could tell they're very familiar with the talent. And the NXT crowds are, you know, they're very educated. They know a lot. And if they don't like you, they'll let you know it. But overall, you don't really see too many people that come out in NXT and get booed. So, yeah, the opening match was good. What do you think about Tyler Breeze and Kalisto? What are your thoughts on them in general as competitors?
As far as the match goes, I thought it was an okay match. You know, nothing too crazy. I thought it was all right for you know, their standard. I'm a fan of Kalisto. You know, I feel like he's like the next Rey Mysterio, you know, in the company.
Right.
Because the kids obviously like him and the adults hate him. So I mean, basically.
I personally love him, but that's just because I know his work prior to WWE and what he is capable of in and out of the ring. But overall, yeah, both stars have a bright future from a wrestling standpoint. And Tyler Breeze's gimmick, a lot of people hate it.
I hate it.
Pretty boy, pompous, sleazy, I'm better than you gimmick, and it really makes fans, like, instead of gravitate towards him, they push him away. They hate him, but you can't help but respect him for his in-ring ability, and that's what makes some of the best heels in this business. Sure, he needs some fine-tuning and things like that, but I say not even less than a year, he'll be ready to go. I think he's the total package, and he's doing a great job improving week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, if they just change maybe his gimmick a little bit, you know, maybe his attire and stuff, then, you know, maybe I'll become
Well,
a
we heard
fan.
the rumor about the gay hairstylist gimmick, so if that is the case and that's the gimmick they want to move forward with, I really hope they just veto it right away and do away with it, because he deserves so much better. I know, like you said just before, the Rey Mysterio reference, he is very similar in his size and how he works the Lucha Libre style, and he is very talented, and he is, you know, reminiscent of Rey Mysterio, you know. But Rey Mysterio is Rey Mysterio, often emulated, never duplicated. And Alberto Del Rio said the same thing in a shoot interview. There will never be another Rey Mysterio, and there won't be. But Kalisto is his own person, and Kalisto is going to be Kalisto. And for him, you know, it's better off that he doesn't get compared to anybody, even though the resemblance is so uncanny. Very similar to Rey Mysterio. Very similar.
Yeah.
I think Mysterio might be a little taller, honestly. Kalisto's actually really short.
I think so too. I mean, he just looks smaller because, I don't know, of the arena or something. Yeah.
He had the moon boots on, I think. He gave him like a 3-inch lift. With
He
the
had
boots
those high heels on,
too.
yeah.
But what else did we have that night? I know we had Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss. My personal favorite is Sasha Banks. We had Kevin Owens versus Alex Riley. I'll praise Alex Riley for that. You know, wasn't the craziest match, but it had good ring psychology. It told a good story. You know, you understood it. You could see where Alex Riley's coming from with Kevin Owens picking on him and things like that, and him leaving the commentary to come back into wrestling. I don't know. Is it a one-time thing? Because I remember William Regal saying, you know, once you get back in that ring, you are no longer a commentator, you're a wrestler. And if you remember in early NXT in the FCW days, they were doing that same angle with William Regal. They had William Regal work Dean Ambrose. They had William Regal work Cesaro. They had William Regal work Cassius Ohno, also known as Chris Hero. And he would leave commentary to come wrestle those guys, and then he'd do a brief stint where he would be away from commentary, away from wrestling, and then he'd come back to commentary. So it could be a one-time thing for Alex Riley and then back to commentary. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I don't think it's a one-time thing. I think he's going to be in NXT for a while because I saw like a backstage interview on YouTube that he did, and he basically said that it was just the start of, you know, his comeback. So, I mean, I guess he's not going to be a commentator anymore, which is good. I mean, I liked him as a commentator, right? But I like him more as an in-ring competitor, so I just wanted to see him back in the ring.
I got to say, like, I was never big on him, but I'll give the guy his props. You know, he has the look. His promos, from what I've seen, have been improving by a pretty decent sized margin, and you know the improvements there, and I'm interested to see what he could do. I like his theme song. You know, he's athletic, he's strong, it's everything you look for in a talent. So hopefully they give him somewhat of a push, see what he could do, put the ball in his court, let him run with it. You know, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But I think he'll upset the doubters. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a fan.
Yeah, no, I'm a fan of it. Like, he's not one of my top guys. He wouldn't be in my top 10 or 20, but I respect him, and he is capable of doing more than he was on commentary. And I'll give him his props. He was a good commentator, too, actually, pretty good.
Yep.
Then we had the Alexa Bliss versus Sasha Banks match. Alexa Bliss getting the upset in her hometown of Columbus, Ohio, beating the champion, gaining herself a title shot next week on NXT. So now we have 2 titles being defended going into next week's NXT. We have Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens for the NXT Championship. We have the Divas title, the women's title, like I like to call it, on the line. Alexa Bliss versus Sasha Banks. And I think we're going to be in for a pretty good showing this week. You know, overall, we all know Kevin Owens is out with the knee surgery, which is unfortunate. It's not a recent injury that happened. It's just something that's been bugging him over time that the WWE wanted to get the surgery done, get it out of the way, let him heal up, and you know, move forward with a clean slate, not have to worry about that in the future if he is in a bigger position than he's already in now. But that's just one big thing that's going on right now. 99.9% sure Baylor won't win. I don't see him carrying any gold in NXT whatsoever, considering he's probably going to get called up to the main roster sometime short after WrestleMania. What do you think about Balor getting called up? And I know you disagreed with me a little bit. You thought he deserved to carry gold and, you know, maybe be a little bit higher in the, not just the show, but NXT as a brand in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think whenever they give the guy the NXT title, that means that they're taking them seriously just to a certain extent, you know. So, I mean, but if what you're saying is that, you know, they like him so much that they just want to put him up in the main roster already, then, you know, I mean, I agree. You know, he could be one of the top guys in a couple of years, you know.
It's funny because when he came in, a good amount of fans, even you did, because I like to run my mouth of like my favorites. I was Prince Devitt this, Prince Devitt that. You know, I've been watching him since he was with Ryo Taguchi in Apollo 55. That's many years ago, and the credentials he carries is just phenomenal. You know, longest reigning IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion in history, and that title over there carries the prestige that our Intercontinental title here used to hold. So if he's the longest reigning in history, that only goes to show how great this guy is, what he's capable of. And he doesn't even need to talk. It's weird to me because he doesn't even talk, but he connects with the crowd so well, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen in my life before. Even the pops he would get in Japan, when Japan fans, as most people know, they sit there quietly, you hear very little, but they're more respectful of it. Even the commentators, they talk very little, and it's more of the hard-hitting sounds coming out of the ring and the suffering and the endurance and what it takes to get over in a match, and it's a lot more respected as a sport over there. But overall, yeah, Balor, I believe he does deserve to hold gold. And when he came in, they did have the deal where he would shortly be in developmental, and I wouldn't even call it developmental anymore. I think NXT is its own brand in its own right. But the deal was he would come in, work a certain amount of time. Once they saw he adapted to the WWE style from in-ring ability and what other types of shenanigans they, you know, evaluate him on, then he would get sent off to the main roster. But then a little after he debuted, he said he wanted to stay in NXT a little longer. But he did adapt quite quick, and I would say in his first couple matches. So he's very, you know, coachable. Hideo Itami, formerly known as Kenta, you know, he's having a little trouble adapting. He's putting on decent matches here and there, but he is, if you could pinpoint it, you have a keen eye for it like I do, he is having trouble adapting to the WWE style. And it's far much more broad than people would think it is, and the little ins and outs that you need to know, the camera angles and stuff like that, you need to be. What do you think about Hideo Itami so far? Do you see him having trouble adjusting? Do you think he's doing okay?
I mean, before he even came into NXT, you know, I looked him up a little, you know, just to like see, you know, what this guy's about and whatnot. And you know, from what I saw in the Indies, you know, I thought he was a pretty damn good in-ring worker. But then when he came into the NXT, you know, I was like, what the hell happened? You know, I mean, he's not terrible, but I mean, you know, you can just tell that he's not comfortable in the ring yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. His style hasn't translated yet, and he's having a hard time, you know, brushing off the cobwebs, so to speak, and, you know, just adjusting to their style. And it is hard to adapt. If you remember Sin Cara, when now known as Mysterious in AAA, when he came to WWE, instead of leaving him developmental long enough to get used to the, you know, the WWE style, they brought him straight up to the main roster. And a lot of people make fun of him for botching like crazy, but in my retrospect, in my opinion, that wasn't his fault. And I like to compare it to the Eva Marie situation. People like hate on her
Oh
beyond
God.
beyond that what they should because she can't wrestle, she boxes, she can't talk, she's very goofy, she looks like a deer staring into headlights. The list goes on and on. It's like Jericho reading off the 1004 holes to Dean Malenko, Stinko Malenko, but there's a reason for it. She was put into developmental, left down there for a month, maybe a month and a half to train. They brought her right to the main roster and expected her to do it, and there's no way it's going to work. Anybody in their own right, even myself included, even a great athlete would look like a complete ass out there. She wasn't ready. They threw her to the wolves, and she didn't succeed. And I wouldn't expect 99% of people to either. But that's somewhat of a different topic for a different day. We won't go into that. But
Right.
any other thoughts about Raw, NXT before we move on? Anything you want to bring up that's been itching you, grinding your gears lately? You just want to get out?
Um,
Now's the time. You always have so much to bitch about when we're offline. Not now.
well,
You're Eva Marieing me.
Eva's. I'm not even gonna talk about her right now. Anyways, no, but you know where I stand on Raw. You know, it's long, it's drawn out, it's boring, doesn't have any wrestling. You know, it's just a boring show compared to what it used to be. Even back in like the 2010s, you know, like it was a lot better back then. Now it's just a bunch of time filler and talking and a bunch of backstage segments, and we don't get enough wrestling on there, and that's what I miss the most. You know, just the wrestling.
Yeah, I agree. And to a certain extent, people blame it and say, well, like 2009, 2010, and so forth and so forth, give or take, whether you're going back in years or forward. WWE had an all-star roster. That's why the product of the show is better. WWE has an all-star roster right now, regardless of what you think they do. If you look at the caliber of talent on the fucking main event, on the main roster, it's pretty high in credibility, if you ask me. And it's not so much the talent that they have; it's how they're using the talent is the problem. And there's a lot of things I would change personally. I'm not a booker. I'm not a promoter. I don't know the ins and outs of the business, but from what I perceive as a fan and what I think they could do differently, I think would go a long way if they, attributed that to what they do in their weekly product. I think, people, they say the fans, they don't listen to the fans, but they do listen to the fans. The scenario with Emma, they fired Emma. It was the fans that brought her back. It was the friends that brought her back, and they went crazy on social media. What happened with Bill DeMott? They weren't going to fire him. All that social media shit, they listened to the fans. He got fired. Daniel Bryan, he wasn't really going to be in the WrestleMania 30 main event. They listened to the fans. He was put into it. They do listen to a certain extent. Sometimes the fans are a little uncanny, and they don't listen, and they always change their minds on what they want. And, it's a flavor of the month thing, like Vince Russo always says. Horrible reference. Wow. There goes my show. But, I didn't get to check out this week's Lucha Underground yet. I was saving it for tonight for something to do tonight. Didn't want to clear out my schedule and be bored all night. But we won't talk about the show itself, but just the product in general. And how do you think it's being ran? I honestly think he's doing a good job with the company and the talent he's bringing in. They're great international talents from AAA. A few guys from Japan came in. They got guys from Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. So really it is international flavor down there. And personally, that's what I like. I like the Lucha Libre style. I like the strong style, the Puroresu from Japan, that hard-hitting stuff. That's personally what I gravitate to as a wrestling fan. I do like the entertainment side of it to a certain extent, but pro wrestling, the sport in general, whether you like to call it a sport or not, I just use that. That's the term I use. But overall, I like it for the pro wrestling. As far as Lucha Underground goes, what do you think about them? How do you think they're doing as far as a wrestling standpoint, the production of the show in general? It is a little bit more dramatized, more of like a movie type of feel to it, but it's different and it's innovative, and I like it. What do you think?
Right. I mean, from what I've seen, I haven't seen it a lot, but from what I've seen, I mean, I think it's a cool kind of environment. How they have to walk down the stairs through the crowd and all that stuff, and like the camera and the camera angles they use and all that is pretty cool too. But I guess they could raise up the production value, at some point, because if you noticed in the announce table, whenever they go to that camera, it's just sitting on the table. So it just shows like their chins and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I mean, I kind of want to look at these guys too, right? I can't really see them, but as far as the wrestling and the kind of talent they're bringing in, I like the environment that they have there. I feel like that's a man's show. So I'll be checking it out for sure next week. I'm kind of intrigued. something different other than TNA. Although, I do love TNA.
We know you love TNA. We know.
I love TNA. Okay.
I
Anyways,
like it.
but I mean,
Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's a little iffy. But even as a fan, I will agree it's hard to sit through some shows. And Mick Foley used to say the same thing about AWA. Big fan of AWA, but even as a longtime fan, Foley used to say all the time it was hard to sit through some of the shows. And that doesn't make you a bad guy. That means you're loyal. You don't have to like everything you see.
right. No, yeah, but I think they've been putting on pretty good shows since the New York tapings last summer. To be honest, I mean they've been pretty consistent, and I'm looking forward to TNA every week. I never get bored of it.
Absolutely. Just to go back to Lucha Underground real quick, the wrestling is top notch, the highest caliber of workers internationally from all over the world. They're competing there, and they're bringing them all there to compete in his what does he call it? His not dojo. I can't think of it. His kingdom. What does he call it? What's that? His temple. He brings all the international flavors from all over the world to compete in his temple. And he does a phenomenal job. If we shy away and we look at commentary, you got a legend from Mexico in general competing in CMLL, AAA, various promotions like that down in South America, Vampiro, and he's doing decent as a play-by-play guy. I enjoy him for the most part. But Matt Stryker, I got to give him the utmost props. Best play-by-play guy going today, and he is a phenomenal commentator. And just a litany of knowledge that guy holds in his head, from workers to moves to ring psychology in general. He's just everything you want in a commentator. Best play-by-play guy going today. If you watch Wrestle Kingdom 9, it was Matt Stryker and Jim Ross that called it. And even Jim Ross couldn't even keep up with Matt Stryker. He was on another level. And there's a video on YouTube if you want to check it out. JR giving him his props after the show, and JR's like, "Holy shit, kid, I couldn't keep up with you." He goes, "You're the real deal." And he is. He's the best play-by-play guy going today. What do you think about Stryker, in your personal opinion? Josh Matthews is doing decent in TNA, but he's no Matt Stryker.
Oh no, I mean I'd take Matt Stryker over Josh Matthews any day of the week, man. I was kind of shocked to see him on Lucha Underground because I didn't know he was there. So when I tuned in and I heard his voice, I'm like, "Is that Matt Stryker?" And then it, panned to the camera on the table. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that is Matt Stryker." So I mean, I've always liked Matt Stryker as a commentator and an interviewer in the WWE. So I mean, it's cool to see him still stay somewhat relevant in the wrestling scene. But yeah, I mean, he brings that authenticity to the show. If you're like a new viewer, you don't know any of these guys, but you hear Matt Stryker's voice, you're like, "Oh, okay, now I can kind of relate to the show now because I know who this guy is." So I mean, it kind of comforts you as you're watching the show. So you're like, "Okay, well, at least I can, tag along with him."
Right, yeah, I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely 100% right. He brings the authenticity to the show. Very credible guy. He's worked all over the world, including WWE and the biggest household names. And he brings a realism there, and you trust him with the product. And you hear his voice, you tune in. You don't have to worry about changing the channel. You don't have to feel iffy about it. You see him, if he's calling that show, it's a legitimate show and a legitimate, production. And that's exactly what Lucha Underground is. We're going to shy away from NXT, Raw, Lucha Underground. A little bit of various rumors going into the week. A lot of talk about Brock Lesnar possibly resigning after WrestleMania 31 and staying in contact with WWE under contract. And there's talk that they're flipping back and forth, and it's a struggle back there with Vince and Triple H, and they're really struggling for power and who gets to say so and what direction they're going to go in. And I'm sure it's going back and forth, and there's been some exchanges here and there. And we all know they have two completely different types of mindsets for the business, completely different. I'm on Team Triple H. That's my side. I love everything he does, from
Hell yeah.
making NXT a brand, from bringing back all the legends Vince wasn't on good terms with and everything like that. He really has done a phenomenal job giving back, opening the Performance Center. Like, Triple H is everything you want in a major executive and a major playwright in your company. He's doing such a great job. I can't praise him enough. To the very end of time, when he takes over, Raw, SmackDown, WWE, the product in general is just gonna skyrocket. And at this point in time, WWE, TNA, whatever it may be, mainstream wrestling in general, we're hitting a boom period, and wrestling really is growing again, and it's starting to hit that success it used to have 10, 15 years back. And I'm loving it. I love every second of it. But what do you think about the Brock Lesnar rumor? I know he's not going to be able to stay under contract with WWE and UFC at the same time. That's just belligerent if you believe it. You think he'll resign or not? Let's get straight to the point.
Do I think he resign? Sorry. I don't know. I don't think so. Because I think he really wants to get back in the octagon. He has some unfinished business in there, so he doesn't want to, leave MMA with that image of a, that he left last time. So I mean, he really wants to go back to the UFC and be champion again there. And I want to see that as well because I was a big Lesnar fan in the UFC.
Right.
So I mean, I want to see him back there, but I also want to see him in the ring, right? But we all know that they can't afford him. They can barely pay for his appearances. So I mean,
I believe he was offered $20,000 just for a Comic-Con Q&A, which lasts usually roughly an hour.
oh, I mean, whenever they get to pay him, yeah, they're gonna pay him a bunch of money, but it's not like
That was one of the reasons him and Vince had a falling out in a verbal disagreement was because he was supposed to do a Comic-Con Q&A and it was going to last roughly an hour, hour and a half. Sometimes they go a little bit longer, but nothing more than that. And he was going to be the payout for that appearance was $20,000. And Vince said, no, you're not doing that appearance. You're going to make an appearance on Raw tonight, and you're only going to make $5,000 or $6,000. And for Lesnar to have to go out there and work for $15,000 less instead of sitting and answering questions, I'm sure it aggravated and irritated them to a certain extent. I know I'd probably be a little upset too.
And I mean, he just stands there most of the time. So I mean, why pay him to just stand there? If he's gonna be on Raw, he better fuck shit up. You know what I'm saying? Have him do something, not just stand next to Paul Heyman while he's cutting a promo about him.
No, yeah, I agree. If you have any other thoughts on Lesnar, go ahead and break the pot open. Lay your cards on the table, or we can just move on to some rumors going around.
Well, if it was up to me, Lesnar would still be champion after WrestleMania. Just saying.
But right, I agree, and I don't mind seeing that to a certain extent. But at the same time, you got to consider he's still going to be doing those limited appearances, and I could understand it to a certain extent where they want to put more emphasis and put the focal point on the United States title, Intercontinental title, bring back the prestige on those, make them more relevant again in this day and age, in a day where they lost all their credibility pretty much. But it would be nice to see the WWE title around a little bit more often. I understand the special attraction thing, and I'm all for it, but you can only take it so far, and you can only work some angles so long before fans get fed up to a certain extent. And right when it happened, they were already fed up, and I didn't mind it at all. I was happy to see it go away. I wish they did put the focal point on the minor titles then instead of waiting all the way till now to think about it.
No, yeah, exactly, and you can tell now that they take the United States title and the Intercontinental title seriously now because on SmackDown those are like the main titles now because Lesnar has the world title on Raw and he barely shows up. But I mean the special attraction thing I completely agree with. Whenever Lesnar's music hits and he walks down the ramp with that title, shit's gonna go down, right? So I mean sure I'd like to see him on the show more often because he makes the show that much better whenever he's there, even if he's just standing in the ring. He makes that show a lot better.
I agree, but despite his size and his athletic ability and his technical prowess that he used to, show like shades of light on back in the day, he doesn't really anymore. Now he's just more of an overpowering brute in the ring, and he just looks to get the win and get the paycheck, and that's kind of his gimmick. And it's very similar to what Kevin Owens is. He's a prize fighter. They label themselves prize fighters. And in wrestling, I think that brings back a little bit of grittiness and realism, and I actually do kind of like that concept in a way.
Yeah. Like whenever I see him suplex somebody, I'm like, fuck, he's gonna kill him or something, because he may seem like he's just there, doing the easy shit, but the way he throws all those suplexes and the way he carries himself around the ring, that takes a lot of work, believe it or not, and to pull off that that badass character every time he's out there is also tough. So I mean, I don't know, I just want to see more of Lesnar, but I mean, if he doesn't re-sign with the company, then I'm fine with that. I want to see him back in UFC anyway. So either way, I'm good.
And despite his athletic ability and his strength and his power and his presence, all the litany of things, the biggest asset in pro wrestling history, in my opinion, Paul Heyman is right by his side to make him that much more believable, to make him that much more of a monster, to make him that much more of a conqueror. And holy shit, man! In my opinion, top 3, top 5 best promos of all time. Best manager of all time, in my opinion, as far as developing superstars and bringing them to main event stature. And, he really is the best manager of all time. There's no way around it. He's gold on the mic. He brings every aspect of the company that you would possibly want, and then some. The sound creator of ECW and the litany of talent he managed and propelled into main event stardom is just so much, dude. Like, we can go on for days. What's your opinion on Paul Heyman?
Oh man, I love Paul Heyman, man. I couldn't praise him enough, like you said. To me, he is one of the top three managers of all time for sure, right under Bobby Heenan, in my opinion. Um,
Okay. Bobby Heenan.
yeah, I don't know. I've
I love
gone
Heenan.
back. Yeah, I've watched a
My
lot of old
personal favorite
stuff.
was Paul Heyman, Heenan, Bear. I'm a big fan of the older guys. Though. I like Clyde C. Freddie Blassie. I like the Grand Wizard and Captain Lou Albano, and like those guys were great too in their own times. The
Jimmy
business
Hart
has
was cool
evolved
too.
so much, and everything Heyman does, whether it's a work shoot where he shoots from the hip and it is work, they know that's going to happen. The microphone cutting out is just Paul Heyman's ingenuity and brilliance on the mic. But it is awesome though. It brings that realness factor. It's epic.
Yep.
Like I'm a 22-year-old kid sitting in my room listening to Paul Heyman talk, and he's just shooting on the mic, and I'm just sitting here, and I feel like I'm 10 years old, and it's just like the 10-year-old self in me would hate Paul Heyman, but now I can respect him for what he's able to do, his capabilities, and his donation to pro wrestling as a whole. It's just untouchable in my opinion. Any last thoughts on Heyman, Brock Lesnar, the WrestleMania 31 situation, Roman Reigns? You think he's ready?
Do I think he's ready? No. I think the time would have been WrestleMania 32. I think that would have been the perfect moment for Roman Reigns. But I mean,
Yeah.
they could have gone with Daniel Bryan this year, and then build up Reigns even more this year. I would have maybe I'd like him. At WrestleMania 32. You never know. But I mean, he's okay in the ring. I'm not gonna take that away from him. He's improved. But his promos are just reminiscent of John Cena. You know how much I hate John Cena. So
I know you do, but I always go out on a limb. I'm not a fan of him by any means, but his mic work it really does fall second to none. He might not be the character that you want, and his promos are reminiscent of that. But man, does that guy have a voice, and he could cut a good promo. He goes toe to toe with the best of them, and he stands in there every single time, and he does a great job. Whether you think he's capable in the ring or not is it's pretty much irrelevant. He is a good worker. He's a very hard worker. He might not be the best technical wrestler. He might not be the best high flyer because he's not. He's a grounded wrestler, and he's the underdog, and the almighty underdog always overcomes, the mighty sword of the authority. But overall, I could respect him enough to give him his props. He is a decent wrestler, one of the hardest workers to ever grace the business, like it or not, and he is a great promo. But Roman Reigns, they compare him a lot, They both are chosen by the WWE. That's their guy. It's the poster boy they want to run with. And it took them so long to get that fucking high that they had in the OVW class of 2002. And if you remember correctly, I believe it was Brock Lesnar, Batista, Randy
Orton,
and
Shelton Benjamin,
Charlie Haas. What was the main four, though? It was Batista, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton,
Cena, probably.
and Cena. That was the OVW class of 2002. When 2002 was around, Punk was still wrestling IWA, I think. That's around the time he had the feud with Joe. But overall, yeah, they were stuck in the OVW class of 2002 for so long. And I am happy that they're pushing a new guy, but it is a guy that he's not an organic, guy. He's not organic. It's not what the fans wanted. It's what WWE wanted. He's a Machines fan. He's a Machines champion. But overall, I think he does have the capabilities. I do think he has potential. His mic work it needs work. Yes, it does. But in the ring, he's decent. Not the fastest moveset, but overall, I think he has a good shot.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. He carries himself like a badass and whatnot, but once he grabs that microphone, it's all gone for me.
Right. And I love the spear when he was with the Shield, just for the pure fact Dean and Seth would have you so drawn into the match. You'd just be like, oh, what's going to happen next? Oh, look at that spot. That's right. Then, boom, spear out of fucking nowhere.
Exactly.
And when they did it perfect. And now that he's not with the Shield, they just go, oh, here comes the spear. It's over. You see him lining up for it. And I like the spear that he did on SmackDown a few weeks back, where he speared him when he was coming off the top rope. I can't remember who it was, but he speared him coming off the top rope, and that out of nowhere effect, and the fans pop for it. Every single one of them, whether they like it or not. That was pretty sweet. So, fans go back on their word a little too much, but other than that, I think WrestleMania 31 will exceed expectations. Come on, there's two dream matches on the card. Triple H and Sting is a dream match. That's not Triple H and Sting. That's WWE versus WCW, and that's been long anticipated. Undertaker Bray Wyatt, I personally wanted to see. I'm going to mark out for that. The whole segment with Bray with the chair setting on fire. Undertaker with the Johnny Cash reference, the man comes around, WrestleMania 31. I'm very interested to see. A lot of people think they're going to revamp him, give him a new song. But if you remember when he came out to Ain't No Grave by Johnny Cash, they played that in the beginning, but then after that song was over, they hit the sound of the bell and his regular theme came on. So
I like that theme song though.
Ain't No Grave, yeah. It's Johnny Cash. A lot of people would be surprised, but he's all the way back, 1960s, 1950s. He's old time, old school. I'm a personal fan of his too. I don't know much of his work, but the work that I do know, it's pretty impressive for his time. But another thing coming through the grapevine, through the dirt sheets, we found out Jimmy Jacobs is signing with WWE. He won't be wrestling. He'll be in a creative role, starting down in developmental and NXT down at their brand. And it's been negotiated for a long time now, and the time's finally come after WrestleMania 31 after his last bookings with Scum and Ring of Honor that he's doing down there with Mike Bennett and all those guys. He'll be coming to WWE, and he really does have a great mind for the business. He has great insight, and he's going to be a great asset to them down there.
Yeah, big fan.
Do you know much about him, or?
No, I don't. I could sit here and tell you that I do, and I'm a huge fan, but I'm not the kind of guy that watches whatever happens on.
But yeah, that's just one guy rumored coming in. You got Casey Cassidy. She's an Australian wrestler. She wrestles out of Shimmer. She's done some work for China, I believe. So you got Jimmy Jacobs coming in, Casey Cassidy. Yuhan Nation is another one that signed. I know he has a few, or no, I'm sorry, he's done with his appearances. He gave his farewell speech at Evolve, the last Evolve show that I remember. So Yuhan Nation is coming. He's WWA 4 alumni, trained in Atlanta by Mr. Hughes. If you don't remember Mr. Hughes, he was that big black guy. Used to dress up in the white coat. He managed China. He managed Triple H back in DX in the early days, around the time before Rick Rude came in. He wrestled Undertaker for the Urn back in the early 90s, stuff like that. But yeah, so you got her, him, Yuhan Nations coming in. There's just a litany of talent they're bringing in, and you got guys like Balor and Sami Zayn and Neville and Sasha Banks, talent that are getting ready to be called up to the main roster. And then you got these indie darlings, as Triple H would call them, coming in to make the transition for them to take over. And so the cycle continues. So overall, there's a lot of good things to look forward to, and Triple H is doing a really good job. So, any other rumors you heard of you want to go over?
Not really. I think you've touched on the ones that I've heard about.
Yeah, we touched base on a few good things going on right now. It is only our second show in a very, very long time. I'm rusty as hell. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for you. I think you're doing much better than you were. You improved a lot. I'm really rusty, but found out on Twitter that Colt Cabana doesn't hate me anymore. I don't know if I told you that story.
I saw the picture, yeah.
Did I ever tell you the Colt Cabana story, though, why you didn't like me?
Nah, I don't think so.
It's just a quick, simple story. If you go to those wrestling websites where you sometimes they'll ask you to share their link so you can watch the HD video so you can watch the show or stream the show, whatever it may be. I shared it onto my Twitter, and I shared it so I could watch the Wrestling Road Diaries, the first one I believe with Bryan Danielson and Colt Cabana. And I'm watching it, and the next day I have a message saying, Colt Cabana messaged me on Twitter, literally saying that I stole his video. He was very upset with me, and he blocked me, and then he eventually unblocked me, and I tweeted him about it, saying, it's not my website. I don't have any partnership whatsoever with that website. I just shared a link to watch it. He personally thought that I stole his DVD and I was marketing it for free to fans online to draw traffic to my website, and I wasn't. That wasn't the case, and I just wanted to watch it. So after now, once I got to tell him what really happened, it was just a big misunderstanding, and he was okay with it, but it just goes to show, I'm a big fan of his. I would have been upset if I lost him as a wrestler. But he's a good guy, and he was understanding about it. Very, very respectful, and I appreciate that a lot. And there's not many guys in the business like that. And I respect Colt Cabana for that. And he is a great wrestler, despite what anyone says about him. Very underrated in the ring, very underrated on the mic. He might act like a goofball from time to time, but I think he's hilarious, and I think that's what helps him connect with the crowd so much. And for an independent contractor and independent wrestler to make a living that he's been making over these years just goes to show how successful he is. Because coming out of WWE, people, whether they're released or fired, whatever their dispute may be, there's the majority of them, 85%, can't make it on their own. It's a hard business to make it in as an independent contractor if you're not working for the major promotions. It really is. You need to have a day job. You need to have something on the side. That's where the weekend warriors come in. So much going on in the wrestling world now. We're hitting WrestleMania 31 season. We got a great couple pay-per-views coming up. We got a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla pay-per-view coming up. We got Weekly Lucha Underground and NXT, the NXT special events, and as a mark myself, even I can't fucking keep up with all the shows, and like I'm watching 4 or 5 hours of wrestling a day, and it's hard to keep up. I know you don't have that problem because all you watch is TNA and you're a dork, but
Hey,
yeah, I
that's
think we'll
fair.
close up shop tonight unless there's anything you want to bring up, you want to discuss real quick.
TNA, fuck the world.
TNA, fuck the world. Oh well, we could talk about that really quick. The dramatic decrease in viewer ratings from last
Okay,
week's
you know
show.
what?
I
All
will
I
say,
gotta
it's
say
going,
is,
I'm not hating on it because I watch the product and I do enjoy it for the most part, but the ratings are coming down every week and they're not dropping by little margins. They're dropping by like 60, 70,000 viewers a week.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's because a
They
lot of
had a
fans.
decent audience when they first switched over to Destination America. I believe their first show drew around 450 to 550,000 viewers, which is decent for switching to such a minor network after leaving a major player like Spike TV. But even that decrease still hasn't caught up with them. It's just dropping and dropping and dropping. They started around 450, 550,000. Then they went down. Now they're all the way down to like 260,000. So they've already dropped 50% as far as viewership goes. And how long
Yeah,
have they been on Destination America now? From a month and a half, maybe 2 months now. I can't remember.
almost
A
2
month, maybe.
months.
Almost 2 months, maybe. What's your rebuttal on that? Because the facts don't lie, but overall, why do you think the decrease is there? One could go to argue it's because the tapings are so far in advance that people won't go to tune in. Another argument you can make is free online viewing. People use the website instead of watching on TV, whether it be they don't like commercials or they just missed it that day. There's so many different reasons and factors that play into it.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, putting the show on a Friday is always a bad move. Friday is the worst day for television. 'Cause nobody's watching TV at home on a Friday night.
No.
So I mean,
Well, I am.
well, I am. Yeah.
But we're losers.
Yeah, exactly. The losers watch it, but then the other badass people that actually have lives go out and do something fun on Friday nights. But also that not a lot of people have Destination America.
No.
I didn't know I had it until I searched it up on my TV and I found it. I was like, whoa, I didn't know I had it. But
yeah, when I heard the news they were moving, I checked and I had it right away. And I've heard of Destination America. I never knew I had it either, so that speaks volumes about the popularity.
right. I mean, it's like how do you call it? It comes from the Discovery Channel. So I mean, you know that they're gonna get big eventually, but it's just starting out now. So I mean,
Right.
I would give it a couple of years for it to start growing, and then maybe the viewers come back. But I don't know if TNA is still gonna be there, right? But
Right.
hopefully they are. But I mean, also the notion that TNA is like I don't know, inferior to the WWE, in the mainstream, because
I'm gonna call
indie
it
fans
fear.
stick to their indie stuff and WWE fans stick to the WWE. They don't
But then
want
there
to
are
go.
some people that are versatile like me that I love all pro wrestling, whether it be Lucha Libre, Ferocious Strong Style, WWE. I love it all, and I can appreciate them all for what they're all worth and their different values. I can understand Lucha Libre. I can understand Japanese style and strong style. I can understand the WWE style and why they work that style, why they are more reserved in their movesets, and I really respect all different companies in their own right.
No, yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, not everybody is the kind of fan that you are, right? Not everybody wants to, stop watching what they're watching and then go watch another show. Some people don't have time. I get that. But some people, have the notion that whatever they're watching now is the best product right now. So they don't want to go and give other products a chance like TNA. So, I mean, some of that
You
comes
don't
from that.
necessarily have to tune in into the whole show. You could go to the point where you could just go and watch the main event from that show and say, I like what these guys are offering. If these are their top guys, I might tune in next week. And this might be something I can adjust to and like. You got to be more open-minded, I think, to a certain extent. Some people are more closed-minded, and there are the people that are just too busy to just, fit that into their schedule. I do agree with you, though.
Right, right. And also, I mean, the fans that TNA does have don't really support it in the way fans of other companies support their companies, right? You don't see a lot of people with TNA shirts or, their pay-per-view buys were pretty bad last year. Somebody bought
I
the
will
pay-per-views.
say, because their T-shirts are pretty, they kind of look like something you would see, at Kmart or something like that. There's no brand to the shirt. I'm having trouble, wording it or a term to use, but,
Like the style of the
some, like
shirt?
you said, there's no authenticity there, and it's It just looks like a Kmart knockoff shirt. It's not like a brand name like where you're walking down the street and like, oh wow, that kid's rocking a Dean Ambrose or a Macho Man Randy Savage shirt. And there's just too much of a design flavor on their shirts. And I think they go so overboard that they take away from the actual shirt's quality itself, in my opinion. Like design all over the front, all over it, they go overboard. I like more simplistic for t-shirt designs. I like to be more simplistic.
Right. I mean, I think I have like 6 TNA shirts in my closet right now.
You probably wear them all at once too when TNA's
on. Whenever Kurt Angle comes out, I take out my Kurt Angle T-shirt. And whenever Bobby Roode comes out, I take out my Bobby Roode T-shirt. But that's besides the point. I'm not talking about me right now. But like your point, a lot of fans don't like the style of T-shirts that they have. You know, a lot of fans don't want to buy their T-shirts. You know, a lot of fans don't want to spend money on the company because, you know, of the notion that, you know, it's just the inferior company. You know, but
right. Maybe afraid they'll be ridiculed or something like that wearing the product.
Right, exactly. Like whenever I wear TNA shirts to school or something like that, nobody ever tells me, "Oh, you're a wrestling fan." Whenever I wear, like, let's say, Seth Rollins T-shirt to school, they're like, "Oh, you watch that shit?" And I'm like, you know, I feel kind of embarrassed to wear the WWE T-shirts to school because they always tell me stuff.
But it carries.
Whenever I wear my TNA shirts,
whether you like it or not, you know what it is, and that means something.
Right, but I mean, I don't think everybody likes to be made fun of for, you know, wearing your wrestling
T-shirt. Like, I don't know, like, doesn't mean anything. Like, people can make fun of pro wrestling all they want. Like, a good quote I learned, like, Owen Hart, like, when people would ask him if wrestling was real, you just say, no, it's not. And he just would avoid the conversation because, you know, the wrestlers in the business, the fans that, you know, pay their money to see them, that have been watching it for years, they know what these guys do. They know how much they're putting on the line, how much they're sacrificing to put on a good show. And, you know, it doesn't, you know, their outside opinions are irrelevant. Wrestling is one of the biggest businesses, despite what people think about it, on an indie level, territorial level, whatever you want to call it, to the mainstream wrestling today, to wrestling overseas in Japan and Europe, British wrestling, huge boom in the last 5 years. You got it down in South America. There's promotions in Africa. Every country you go into, there's a wrestling promotion. And it's much bigger than people think. And people are just solidified to that WWE mindset, that enclosed mindset where this is the product, this is wrestling, and this is all there is out there. And I won't settle for that.
Right, exactly.
I won't. Because there's so many guys out there that are harder workers. And, you know, WWE's schedule is hellacious. I couldn't even imagine doing that, in my opinion. That's something that you have to build a tolerance for. Like, I can only imagine the amount of time it takes out of those guys and the stress and endurance they go through, the injuries, and not being home, traveling. Whether I like a wrestler or not, utmost respect for all of them, even on an indie level, for what they have to go through to put on a show and make a living. It really is insane.
Yeah, I agree.
TNA T-shirt issue. If you look at the indies now, you got guys like Young Bucks and Red Dragon who are outselling numerous TNA merchandise holders altogether just by themselves. And indie wrestling is drawing a lot of money these days. It really is. If you look at Wrestle Kingdom and stuff like that, like Wrestle Kingdom 7 or 8, I think it was Wrestle Kingdom 7, the year before Devitt's last year. And Yoshihiro Takayama faced Prince Devitt. And that was a good 2 out of 3 falls match. And if you go back to that, there was probably like 85,000 people in the crowd in the Tokyo Dome. So they draw big money. Those guys in Japan, AJ Styles, if you remember, he left because Dixie cut his salary in half or something, I believe. I'm not sure. I can't really remember, but it was because of a pay cut by Dixie Carter.
It was about money, yeah.
It was about money. That's the reason he left. And if you go back to that now, and the money they offered him and he turned down, which I believe was like $400,000 or $500,000, which is a big sum of money, even though he has been there since day one. He went over to Japan, and the first 6 months he was in Japan, he already exceeded that pay offer from Dixie Carter from the cut one. What do you think about that as far as, I don't know, I would never, why would you cut your top guy's pay, the guy that's been there since day one, the guy that's probably your biggest draw-in factor, it's probably your biggest merchandise seller? Why would you cut his pay when he's giving you nothing but turnaround for the company? He's such an organic guy. The fans loved him for him. He wasn't a self-made guy. He wasn't, you know, the Machines champion. He was an organic wrestler, and the fans loved him, and they bought into him because they could relate. I love AJ Styles.
I love AJ Styles, too. I have like 4 AJ t-shirts in my closet right now. Yeah, I'm a mark, so what? Anyways.
We should probably start raffling some of those TNA shirts off.
Actually,
Next fan to call in gets a free TNA shirt.
I got a couple of t-shirts that don't fit me anymore, so yeah, I can auction those out for sure. Signed, too. Autographed by me.
There goes the value. There goes the value.
It went from $5 to $1.
Yeah, now we owe them. We
Oh
owe them
wow.
money now. Yeah, go
Uh,
on.
what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. But I mean, in TNA's what do you say? Situation. Um, the company wasn't really doing good with money. They weren't drawing in more fans. They weren't drawing in more pay-per-view buys. People weren't buying merch. Um, and due to that, you don't want to, pay just one guy so much money when you could be using some of that money to raise your production value, or you know try to put your product more out there. Get more commercials, and you can do more live events and stuff like that. Because I think it was last year that lockdown was in Texas, and I didn't find out until like the week before because they never mentioned it or anything, and I never saw a commercial for it. Now I would have gotten a lockdown if I would have known about it. But that's the point, though. A lot of fans do like TNA, and they want to go watch the shows, but they never know where they're going to be at. And if they move and they tell you it's the same places every time, like New York and Pennsylvania and all that stuff. So I
Right.
mean, they
Usually
need
their
the
only
money.
space of promoting is from social media in general, and it's not to an extent like WWE where they draw such a huge social media traffic that they could just advertise on social media and get a turnaround from it.
Right, exactly, because they have the money and TNA doesn't. So I mean, I think if you give TNA the kind of money that uh, the other company has, I think they could do a lot of better stuff, right? Due to the talent and due to that it's TV 14 and all that stuff. But
It is TV 14, and I still feel like they still shy away from some content in a way.
well, except from last week, I don't know if you remember that EC3 Rockstar Spud match, man.
That was a good match, a
That
little
was a
overrated in my opinion, but it was a great match.
oh, obviously, but I mean,
Some fans were calling it match of the year, and like I don't know what kind of dust you smoked, but it was a good
they
match.
saw blood, so
Yeah, Rockstar Spud was sliced open pretty good, man. I got to tell you. He did a good blade job.
yeah, he's a bleeder for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan.
Woo!
Um, no, but yeah, I mean, um, it's like, for example, in the NFL with the Broncos, they cut Peyton Manning's check because they wanted that money for other, talent, right? Um, so it's basically the same thing here. They need the money to bring in not only more wrestlers, but to expand their company even more. So, I
Right.
mean, um, sure, it sucks when you get a pay cut, but I mean, you got to understand what the company's going through and what they need. So.
That's the problems most fans speculated around was because AJ Styles made so much money for the company, whether it be the Tron factor and ticket sales or merchandise sales or his credibility when it came to promoting, and the Tron factor he brought from that alone was pretty big. And a lot of people thought he was being cheated out of a lot of money, and a lot of wrestlers spoke on that in shoot interviews as well. That AJ was the main draw for the company in all aspects, and for you to cut him is insanity because that means whatever you're cutting him plus the money he's drawing in, you're literally cutting the commission that he's making on his T-shirts. All his percentages are dropping. And I do understand what you said. It's 100% right. Sometimes you do need to cut your costs when they're too high, and sometimes you do keep a guy around like too long, and you even drop him because he's been in the company so long and he makes so much money now that it's really hurting your dish out for payments for payroll. And I'm sure he was a top dog in payroll, no doubt about that.
Oh yeah,
Only one close to him at the time was probably Angle and Hardy.
probably.
I can think of staying at the time, Hogan. They pay a lot of older guys very big sums of money, and that money could be going into different places.
Yeah, exactly.
Vince Russo as a consultant, in my opinion, didn't help. If you look at the buy rates for the last 3-4 pay-per-views, WCW did, Halloween Havoc, and things like that, the buy rates slumped every time Vince Russo was in charge. So he won't take credit for it. He still hasn't. It's not solely his fault, of course not, but he did play a pretty big influence in it.
Yep. And I
But,
mean,
go ahead.
I don't know. It's like if you gave John Cena a pay cut, what would happen there? Would he leave the company too?
I don't believe he would. I believe his morals and loyalty are far above that.
Exactly. So it comes down to the morals and loyalty. The loyalty to the company that you so-called, uh, put on your back and carry to where it is now. So I mean, I get where AJ
And
was
it's not
coming
like he wasn't
from.
making money though. Like think of it, like come on,
Right.
$500,000 a year. I'm sure when you're in that position, it is different because you're used to making that type of money. You know what you're worth, and you know how hard you're working for that type of money. But that's still more than enough money you would ever need, and it's reliable, and it's you have job security.
Right. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I know where he's coming from. You know, he's got kids and a wife and stuff like that he needs to provide for and whatnot. But I mean, you don't have to get to the point where you're that selfish about money to where you say to the company that you've been for that long, you know, goodbye. I'm gonna go wrestle somewhere else where they pay me more, right? I mean, um, you could say that, like for instance, for Brock Lesnar, he isn't coming out every week for free.
No, he's a prize fighter.
Exactly. But AJ Styles isn't Brock Lesnar, so I mean,
Great, and I agree, but it could go either way. Either way, I respect the hell out of him. I support his decision, just like I support CM Punk, just like I support any wrestler that decides to walk out. And it's another thing I wanted to elaborate on. We don't got too much time left, but the CM Punk thing, him leaving, fans upset. He owes him a goodbye. He owes him this. He owes him that. They made his career, so forth and so on. But you chose to watch that product. You chose to buy that T-shirt. When the guy said enough is enough, he said enough is enough, and he wanted to move on, and he wanted to venture into something else with his life. He doesn't owe the fans anything. He really doesn't, and I respect him for it, and I appreciate him, and I really admire him for being no tolerance guy. He doesn't take shit from anyone. So fuck you. I'm out of here.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know why the fans are like, so stuck on this that that they need a goodbye from Punk. It's not like you can't go to UFC and watch him there. You know,
I know.
he doesn't owe the fans anything. He's been working his ass off all these years for the fans. He's been miserable for a long time. So I mean, and he's been going to every Raw, going to every house show for the fans. It's not like he's just there for the money, right? I mean, he could have made a ton of money in the UFC a long time ago.
Right. No, and WWE pays more. So if he was in it for the money, he would have stayed with WWE.
Right. Exactly.
Now he's on
But
a
I
low
mean,
card fighting in UFC, and he's drawing low six figures to the point where he was drawing a good couple million a year in the high seven figures.
yeah, and I mean it's also the way they were treating him. If everything that he said on Cole Cabana's podcast is true, then you should feel for the guy. Like, okay, I understand why you left. Maybe a lot of fans needed that kind of confirmation of what happened. Maybe him talking about it, made a lot of fans, happy that from the way he left. Like me, like I was kind of, effy about the whole leaving thing, but then once I heard the podcast, I understood his point of view. So I mean, you
Right.
can't blame the guy for leaving.
Right. I do agree. I'm sure most fans wouldn't, but that's just our point of view, and we just so happen to agree on it. Him walking out was a declaration to himself and his independence and what he was going to do with his career, and he wasn't in it for the money. Bullshit. We've seen the guy wrestle with fucked up limbs, broken. He finished the match with a fucking fractured skull. I don't know how many wrestlers that would do that. We
Yeah,
saw
the
Sin
staph
Cara
infection,
sprain his
dude.
staph infection, which could be deadly to a
Could have
certain
killed him.
extent. People just say he's bitching unnecessarily and spewing venom, as some like to call it, but he's not. It's the truth. It can be deadly. I know people that have been very sick from staph infection. You know, it's not anything to mess with, and they want to. Dr. Amen, I believe it is, wants to take Punk to court for it. And I believe it's a stupid decision. I believe he's going to get countersued, and he's going to lose a lot of money to the doctor because there's actual proof from another doctor that Punk went there and he was treated for his staph infection when he was completely active on the main roster, week in and week out, for pay-per-views, Raws, SmackDowns, whatever he may have been booked in that time period. He went to that doctor and he had it removed, the cyst that was on his back or whatever the fatty thing was. I forget the term they used to describe the terminology, fatty tissue or whatever. But the doctor, of course, has all the documentation for that, and there's no way of disproving it. And he was active during that time, and it was proven that cyst, that lumpy fat tissue on his back or wherever it was there for many, many weeks, and he was competing with it. And I'm sure, regardless of if he went to them or not, the doctor should have went to him and said, "Hey, we got to get this taken care of." We'll
Right.
patch you up. You'll be off TV for 2 weeks, and then we'll get you back out there, see how everything looks. But there's documentation. The doctors, what a stupid case to take, don't you think? Why would he try to sue someone on that? And I know it's for defamation of character, but the documentation and the facts prove otherwise. I think he's going to get countersued and lose a lot of money.
Hey,
Punk's not a bitch. He's not going to say, "Oh no, don't worry about it. You tried to sue me." He's like, "No, dude, you're fucking with me. I'm gonna come right back at you. I'm gonna fire back as hard now. I'm gonna countersue you. You want to waste my time? I'm gonna waste yours."
exactly. You don't mess with CM Punk in the court, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially in this scenario, if he was wrong, yeah, understandable. But in this situation, facts prove otherwise.
Yeah.
But anything you want to clear up before we head out tonight?
Oh man. Nothing comes to mind right now, but I bet whenever we start doing this, I'm gonna think of a bunch of stuff to talk about. But
Yeah,
I'll
we
let
just
you carry
started
that
going
for
off the
next.
riff. Really, we just got broken into so many different things.
Right.
But if you're all cleared up, if you don't got anything, I'll give you a minute or so to think if you want. Or
Man, I don't know. Yeah,
Brain
I can't
fart?
think of anything. Yeah.
That's all right. That's all right. We've been going for a while. I'm sure it's been like close to an hour now, if not a little bit over. But other than that, we had a good time. We talked some wrestling. We talked Raw, NXT, what's going on, a little bit of rumors here and there, break up the monotony. Like I said to the fans, send your feedback, leave it in the comment section below. Tell us what you thought of the show. What would you like us to improve on? Something different? Would you like us to interview people? Do you want to see Q&As? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? We're happy. We're happy to be here for you guys. Talk wrestling. If you enjoy it, more power to you. If not, hit the dislike button. Tell us what you didn't like, and we're going to try to improve on it. Like I said, I'm the host. I'm Paul Jazer. You can follow me on Twitter at @_ArabianWolf. Add me on Facebook, Paul Jazer. Along with doing podcast videos, I'm actually a digital artist and graphic designer. I've been doing it now for close to a year. I do, anywhere from promotional posters, banners, ads, T-shirt designs, business card designs, the wrestling match cards, anything an indie promotion needs, I make it. You can check me out on Facebook, Kayfabe Concepts, high quality work, digital art for the wrestling mark. Mario, if you want to plug yourself, your Twitter or Facebook, get your name out there to the fans so they can check you out.
Yeah, sure. You guys can follow me on Twitter at GoldenEagle0462. And I do recommend Paul's work. He made me a personalized page poster that I will make into a poster. So yeah, he does make a lot of high quality stuff, and hit him up, man.
Right. Don't forget to hit me up. Make sure you guys, if you're first time viewing, make sure you subscribe to Project Pipe Bomb on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Happy to interact with the fans and talk to you guys, get your take on the show, your take on what's going on in wrestling, or just anything in general. If you just want to hit us up to chat, feel free. But for Paul, for Mario, for my silent friend Curtis, thanks for watching, guys, and have a good day. Peace.